The pick is in.
With the number 24 pick, the Minnesota Vikings select Donovan Jackson, offensive lineman, Ohio State, presented by LinkedIn. Here to break this down with me is the host of Locked On Vikings, Luke Braun. Luke, you're bopping your head over there. You're having a good time. Seems like you're loving this pick. Tell me a little bit about how you're feeling.
Hey, this went better for us tonight than the Locked On mock draft did. I'll tell you that much. It was very interesting that the Vikings didn't use up their whole clock. There was so much about them trying to trade down. Chargers and Packers do that before. And then they just slammed this thing. I agree with that. I had Donovan Jackson as my favorite guard in this whole class. He is the most, the first word that comes to mind, he is a normal guard. There's no weird proposition. There's no stupid little caveat. He's just a straight up good player, blue blood school, plays good football. I think a lot of the bad things that happened to him were because of he's just not the rangiest. He doesn't have the most range in his footwork. But all that stuff happened when he was out at tackle, where he was only playing to fill in for Josh Simmons' injury. When he was in at guard, excellent pass protector, technical. I love what he does with his hands. I love the way he sets up with his feet. He's got sand in his pants, anchor, all of that stuff. Good recovery if something does happen. If he gets an arm defeated, he can reset it quickly. And just a mauler in the run game. So just set him up with Christian Darrisaw whenever he returns to the field when he's healthy. Get a double team on guys and say good night. We're going to beat everybody with hammers. This is the Vikings now.
Tell me about this offensive line with Donovan Jackson in it now. How much more confident are you feeling? Minnesota obviously added a lot of guys this offseason. They revamped part of their offensive line. This is the latest addition to that. How much more confident are you feeling now going into this season than you were heading into last year?
So if you remember that playoff game last year, everybody watched 9 sacks, total O-line meltdown. Of the players on the field that game, one of them is still playing for the Vikings, and that's Brian O'Neill. Christian Darrisaw scheduled to return, but even the backup for him is probably Justin School, who's better than David Quessenberry, or who's going to be better, I think, than Cam Robinson was. The entire interior is different now. Assuming that, I mean, he'll have to earn his job. Donovan Jackson will have to earn his job, beat out Blake Brandel. That'll probably be a camp competition in formality, and you would hope that he can kind of win that job. But they've replaced Garrett Bradbury with Ryan Kelly. They've replaced Ed Ingram with Will Fries. They've upgrade. This is now a team that I feel like can approach games the way the Lions do, where we can just kind of say, hey, we're just going to run super simple run plays all day long till you have to overcommit to something, because we can kick the crap out of you at every position. And once you overcommit to something, then we throw the counterpunch at you, and then things can sort of snowball from there. The Lions had this like snowball effect. I think the Vikings have done a great job of building an offense that can do that same snowball effect as long as JJ McCarthy is okay. He doesn't even have to be amazing. He has to be better than Nick Mullins. Like, we're in a spot where we can be that team. And I think the question marks for the Vikings lie now entirely on the defensive side of the ball.
Now, the Vikings still have draft capital to work with. Now that you have Donovan Jackson in the fold, where else are you looking as the draft goes on for Minnesota?
D-tackle. So the Vikings signed 2 D-tackles, Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave. They're both over 30. They're both coming off injuries. So while they did acquire a lot at that position, there's still reason to want a long-term plan, a backup plan if injuries come back, right? Like, there's a lot of reason to want to bolster the depth. The Vikings do have good D-tackle depth too. They've got a couple of guys you probably haven't heard of that played pretty well in like Taki Taimani or Jalen Redmond. But a kind of a long-term answer at that position would be really exciting, but also they need so bad in the secondary. Somebody like Malachi Starks or Nick Emenwari would have been awesome here, but now the Vikings aren't up again till pick 97. So we're starting to talk about like Billy Bowman, or some of these are like 3rd round guys that you can get. And we're looking for who's the sleeper kind of deal. The Vikings were really motivated to trade down, and they must've talked a lot to the Giants, who just traded up and then they picked Jackson Dart pick later. And so I'm pretty surprised that they didn't wait the clock out a little bit more and they just went up and slammed it. But I get feeling that excited about Donovan Jackson, because so am I.
For continuing coverage of the Minnesota Vikings, subscribe to Locked On Vikings wherever you get your podcasts. And for more on Donovan Jackson, let's hear from Locked On Buckeyes, who spent a lot of time covering Donovan Jackson up close.
Donovan Jackson has the measurables, the power, and the movement to be a starting guard in any scheme in the National Football League. What is up, guys? My name is Jay Stevens, the host of Locked On Buckeyes, and Donovan Jackson's power at 6'4", 315 pounds shows up all over the film. No matter if Ohio State called a gap run scheme or a zone run. He is a guy that also has the athleticism to excel in the zone run or playing left tackle, where in the middle of the season, He had a bump out to left tackle due to injuries the Buckeyes offensive line had, where he showed off his athleticism in space and was a force out on the outside and quickly figured out how to use his length, how to use his size, how to use his speed, even his power on the outside playing a new position. But ideally for Donovan Jackson, he is a guard, a starting guard that can provide an impact on day one in the NFL.